Everybody for having me. My name's Andrew Loshman. I live on Ancaster Avenue, and I've lived here with my wife and my now 11-year-old daughter for um, basically 11 years. We also moved here from Westboro after some of the intensification there kind of drove us out. So sort of interesting to be here. Um, the purpose of the presentation, not really sure who the audience is for this ultimately. I'm thinking the counselor's office and the stage two team and the city team, but basically residents of Ancaster, Compton, and Anthony seeking relief from the changes that stage two has made at the end of our streets, as well as permanent solutions to truly high speed and high volume traffic along Ancaster in particular. By way of précis, in July, they opened up the access to Richmond, now Byron, Byron, now Richmond, to both Ancaster and Compton. There was no warning about this and really no rationale for why the traffic patterns had to change. Understood that there needed to be connection, but no rationale for the the in and outbound connection. There have been several meetings now with the stage two team, the counselor. I have to say, quite pleasantly surprised and impressed by the support from Sue and David and the WCA board. And we've formally requested a traffic study on Ancaster Avenue to the counselor's office, but really are looking for more fixes. I'm a big data person. And one of the things that I'm struggling with is that I'm not sure that the city or the counselor or maybe even other residents within the neighborhood truly understand what it's like to live on Ancaster on some days. And at the bottom here, you see a chart. This slide, if there's one slide that gets put in front of the counselor or the city, it's intended to be this one. So there's the problem, the evidence, and the ask. The thing that's really worth noting is that in this chart at the bottom, what I did personally, and I'll touch on a few more details, but was to set up using an iPad and a basic piece of software, an AI-based system that tracks and identifies vehicles between 2 points on the camera, records them, takes a picture, timestamps it, and calculates their speed. And to do this, I had to get out there and measure with tape measures and get all the geometry of the system right. And then over a 3-day period, I took my own car and I ran test runs at 24, 30, and 40 kilometers an hour to make sure that the system was working correctly. Indeed, it is. It was, plus or minus 1 or 2 kilometers an hour. And I think just draw all our attention to the fact that on average, cars are speeding on Ancaster, so they're going faster than 30. But in 1/4 to 1/5 of the time, they're traveling 40 to 50 kilometers an hour, which is quite fast on a street that has no sidewalks, as we well know in Woodpark, and people are walking their dogs. My kid is walking to school. Other kids are walking to school. And then perhaps more alarmingly, you see not like 1 or 2, but a lot of cars going faster than 50. And some of the fastest cars there, right, you see on the 20th was 68 kilometers an hour. With the system, I've clocked somebody at 75 kilometers an hour going at 2 p.m. on Ancaster. And so you get these cars going exceptionally fast. Those people going that fast are probably jerks. I suspect that everybody else is probably just unaware, right? They speed up and they're not sure. And this is both cut through traffic as well as residents, I would say. There are blind spots on Compton, blind spots at Ancaster and Joanne as you're going over the hill. It's impossible to see bikes, pedestrians, cars. Nevertheless, it doesn't stop people from zigzagging along the street there, right even at the crest, as well as at the intersection of Anthony and Ancaster and Compton. It's hard to see cars coming in. Just to highlight, so we are all reminded, and oddly enough, this is a study that in all of Canada, the city of Ottawa also co-authored and supported, that as a pedestrian, if you're hit at 50 kilometers an hour, you're 8 times more likely to die than you would be at 30 kilometers an hour. This is like a really troubling fact, and speeding between, going from 25 kilometers an hour to 55 kilometers an hour basically saves you no time in the transit, yet we're talking about basically a death sentence if a contact were to occur. So we've got some pretty clear asks, definitely open to moderation and some thought from this audience here. But really, I haven't been down since they made the changes in the last couple of days. So ask number one may in fact be irrelevant at this point, but we want to stop left-hand turns out from Compton and out from Ancaster. That would restore the original traffic flow that pre-existed. Of course, previously you could get onto Byron, but getting in and out of the neighborhood was only eastbound, only onto Richmond. We're also seeking to change things more permanently, perhaps adding street markings or adding, per the conversation earlier, occasional enforcement. I can still think I spent a lot of time growing up in Ottawa, in Canada, and I used to commute in along, and I don't even remember the name of the road now, but running along parallel to the Queensway around the old Nortel, now D&D headquarters, there's a road that runs, and it said no through traffic. Everybody went through there to bypass the Queensway backups until, for a period of 2 weeks, the cops came out and ticketed absolutely everybody if you were not from the neighborhood. I don't think I've driven on that road in the 20 years since. So enforcement does help. And the things that we're asking for as Woodparkers they're not abnormal, they're not strange, they're not ridiculous. They're completely in line with stated City of Ottawa strategic objectives to limit injuries and fatalities, including to add sidewalks and implement the 30-kilometer-an-hour design road system, which they've partially done here. So credit to Teresa, and I'm sure to the board before I was aware of it in doing this, but really just getting the traffic to slow down and to do so in a way that the city has already identified that they want to be doing. Just a couple notes I'll go through here, and then I'll wrap up my presentation. But I've gone through this point. The thing I want to really drill home here is that I understand that no speeding tickets are going to be issued by the photographs that the system took. I understand that it's not scientific. I understand that it's not a police certified system. But my key message would be here, notwithstanding, it's still accurate. It was tested. It was set up. And it also lines up with anecdotal experience of people along the street as well. So I'd be willing to concede that there might be a few percentages variation here, but it's not completely off base. The other thing is that the total car count at the top there, it's actually higher because the system doesn't count motorbikes. It's not able to track the school buses that go up because they're a little bit bigger and so on. In terms of the through traffic, really what we're seeing is cars turning off. And I took a few pictures. I'm out there every single morning, every single evening, walking the dog, taking my daughter to school. When Richmond backs up, when Byron backs up, whatever it is now, the cars start turning in and off as is natural. And then they head on to Anthony, they whip down there, and then they add to an already, they exacerbate an already existing problem at that intersection with pedestrians trying to cross there, cars going through, pedestrians being, pressured to exit the intersection when they're just trying to cross the road. This is a data point without a particular request associated with it, but it is notable that Ancaster is basically half a kilometer long with no blocks, no stop signs, no other restrictions. It's one of the longest unimpeded stretches of road that isn't an arterial road in a fairly significant diameter. If you take a look at Google Maps, you can really get an appreciation for this. And I do believe this contributes materially to how people behave on the on the road. You see here's the hill I'm talking about. Obviously, pictures are very hard to see changes in altitude, but we all know the hill. I believe I managed to get a picture of David here, who I'm happy to say is only there as a reference point to show the blind hill, and was driving quite well. On the left there, we've got a pickup truck who, swerved around me towards those two women walking on the left-hand side, and then right over again. But the point here being that's a blind hill. If there'd been a kid, a dog, somebody fallen, a car coming up that direction, there would have been a collision. This is another pattern. Commonly used commuters just come and avoid Woodruff. The speed limit camera there, the congestion, what have you, but people are using the street, and they're going to use Ancaster and Compton in a way that the rest of the neighborhood won't get used, because really you can see it's more efficient to simply cut the corner out, and it's no additional time to the driver, especially if you're traveling as fast or faster as you would on Woodruff. But I will also say that it's not just cut-through traffic, although that's a big part of it. It's other people moving into the neighborhood and through the neighborhood, but also I'm sure there are people that are going from Ancaster all the way through to Edgeworth to get in and out, and they want to move quickly because it's a neighborhood, so you got a bunch of stops. Sue asked me this one. This is the last slide. She said, what's the point here? There is no real point aside from the fact that we're in a neighborhood that's intensifying without, a lot of the basic infrastructure that we would expect. This is from the Lincoln Field Secondary Plan. There are sidewalks planned for Edgeworth, Woodland, and Lawn, but not for, say, Midway and Ancaster. Does this matter? We're really looking to have reduced volume and reduced speeds on the road, but having pedestrians off of it as well, I'm sure would be an improvement. But this is a more complex discussion because there's both pros and cons to having sidewalks. So with that, I'll wrap up and thank everybody for their attention and for the opportunity to speak.